this month. That will then, you can sign up there for updates, and then you'll receive ongoing information from the project around the consultancy service, around the performance options that come out as we get further down the road with this. But I think that, as I say, is just a very brief introduction, but gives you an insight into the project. And as I say, I think it's got a lot of potential for pulling together the sort of work that's already been done and taking it forward to the next stage. So I'll hand back to John. Do come and see me. I'm by the coffee area outside if you want to find out a bit more about the project. So.
Okay, I'm into my final slides now. So in terms of toolkit, the approach that we found worked successfully for clients. This is fishbone analysis. Those of you who are into lean processes and methodology will recognize this. So if you systematically think about what drives return on investment, so it's productivity improvement in people, organizations, buildings and estates, cost reduction clearly in terms of OPEX, CAPEX, value improvement in terms of improving what you're able to achieve in terms of outcome from the buildings, and operational improvement at the granular level in terms of taking the systems, BMS optimization, etc., etc. And actually bespoke it for either a building or a client organization. It actually delivers the sort of powerful output that you see in lots of other lean processes and techniques. And we found this extremely successful for our clients. So it's a simple idea implemented with a level of detail that actually can make a big difference. So in terms of summarising, so what we've done over the last 22 minutes is giving you a little introduction to us as a business, said a little bit about how we've approached with our clients, or learned over the last 5 or 7 years to sort of to improve performance and productivity, and some techniques and ideas that have come back from both our clients and the large-scale built environment asset users that we've been working with. UCLH was a simple sort of case study to explain the sort of how we went around looking at improving value in their supply chain. Their approach may not be to everybody's liking, but you know, they have a specific way of delivering FM, and they have a contractual sort of obligation to stick to that for a period of time, and what we did was find a way of actually delivering an enhanced solution there. Tom has explained a little bit of the work that we're doing in WLP+, which is supported by Innovate UK. So all of that sort of research will be disseminated through our website. So we're really interested in people sort of picking it up, coming back with questions, sort of working with us to sort of work out what are the questions we should be answering to actually help improve productivity and well-being and absenteeism in buildings. And then in terms of the top 3 takeaway tips, it's back to what those large-scale serial investors in real estate assets said, which is create an estate strategy that allows you to articulate how you align your buildings with what you're doing at an organizational level, and that will flow through to your facilities management strategy, your sustainability strategy. So agree what you're trying to achieve, and then think about how you actually measure it in operational and financial terms. Track it, track yourself against your plan, track yourself against your competitors in your sector and your competitors outside the sector. So just before I hand over to questions, as Tom said, we have a white paper that you can pick up a hard copy from today. It will be on our website together with a copy of the presentation once I get back to the office tomorrow, so you'll be able to download that if you want to. And equally, you can sign up to be on our updates on the whole life performance cost project by going to wlpplus.com. So thank you. I'm going to open to questions if that's next stage. Deborah, is that okay? Yeah?
Could you give some examples of the things you may do in the hospital to improve efficiencies and reduce absenteeism? I mean, have you got any ideas at this stage?
In the hospitals?
Yeah.
Well, the hospital's slightly different in that our focus on the well-being and absenteeism at the moment is on office buildings. So we're focused on taking worker productivity, well-being and absenteeism and applying it to simple admin tasks in office environments. And that's to allow us to create a statistical link between output and and the environment. So we're looking at call center handling, we're looking at the admin functions, and we're creating the model to do that. And then the hope, once we've established a statistical link between quantitative outcome and those indoor environmental quality issues, is then to think about putting it into the qualitative space. So if you take hospitals as an example, there's a lot of data that says, I was talking to a number of people about this last night, there's a lot of data that says, particularly out of the States, that if you've got a patient who is in a single ward en-suite with a view to outside, their post-op recovery is 10% faster than if they're in a mixed ward. Certainly looking at the patient experience data sets, Pete and Place and so on for UCLH and the other Shelford Group organisations, which are the top 10 academic trusts in the UK, there's a lot of data that says you can get great clinical expertise and treatment in a hospital, which you expect, but if your food rocks up and it's not good and you don't have a pleasant interface experience with the person who's delivering the food, and the porter doesn't converse with you as a person when they're showing you around and wayfind you, that people's experience of the hospital dramatically reduces. So our WLP Plus project at the moment is very much focused on looking at office buildings and looking at quantitative admin type work where we can prove a statistical link. Our hope over the long term would be to be able to move that into areas like education, working with King's College London and thinking about how we improve the educational experience, the student experience, and the same in areas like healthcare. Deborah.
How are you going to deal with the variables? Because there's age, type of work, point in your career, so
The variables are almost.
Yeah, they're insurmountable to make that control group kind of to define what the perfect atmosphere is going to be to have great productivity.
Yeah, I mean the sort of utopian environment doesn't even exist. So how do you aspire to that? And I think the way the project's going to approach this is first of all to understand what do we know and what can we prove, because that hasn't even been done yet. And once we've got that found, once we've got that footing, we can build on that. In terms of the trial itself, we're going to be using buildings where we've got tasks that are repeated in different spaces within the same building. So, for example, we might have 2 or 3 floors where people are doing relatively similar tasks. We can control the environments differently on different areas of the building. So we create our own control group within the project, and that will give us a better understanding of, okay, in real world terms, what impact is this having? Because, like you say, how do you tease out, the fact that, okay, well, you've just been for a run this morning when you sat down, so you were hotter than you normally are when you walked in from the cold, or different conditions, different moods, different view, different colleagues. As I say, the variables are kind of endless, really, and that
And
makes
also the type of work being done. The kind of environment you want when you're looking at a contract is very different than the type of environment you want when you're in a collaborative working environment.
Yeah, exactly. So that there's so many dynamics. So I mean, I think what John was explaining there is we're starting off by making it as measurable, as simple as possible, to make sure we've got some good science. And then once you've got that foundation, you then take that as far as you can, and you have to manipulate that as you go. And we don't know what the answer is yet. That's what we'll discover over the next 2 years. How much manipulation can you do, and it still be adding value?
But I guess part of the reason for having an academic partner on board is to have the, let's call it the academic rigor of identifying, and currently at the moment we're researching to identify all of the previous experimentation in this space, to identify what things people are suggesting have the biggest impact. And then we'll go and trial them in the real world and set up a methodology that allows us to statistically prove the link between that and try and isolate the other variables. And we're in the process of designing that methodology at the moment and completing the first pass of the IEQ model based on the previous research.
Yes, you mentioned in your first part of your presentation about cost reduction, and I imagine some of that was energy specifically,
Mhm.
so other cost reduction measures you can make as part of your consultancy. When you're making your proposal, what's your experience of the client's willingness and the timescale on getting them to actually do something about that? Because I mean, usually spending money, even if there's a clear ROI, is a challenge, isn't it?
It is, and it's different for each organisation. But I mean, typically, if you take energy, typically clients will, if there's an immediate payback, so if you could go in and optimise a BMS system, which is a typical thing you can do, and have a less than 1 year payback, clients will take that. If you then get to 2 year payback for, say, something like a LED or a lighting control installation, then they'll accept that. If you get to 3 or 4 year payback for maybe something like a boiler replacement or something like that, that's acceptable. Once you get to 5, that's where it starts to become a little bit more painful, and it depends on the organisation and the pressure on them. So if you take higher education as an example, some of those clients will accept paybacks between 8 and 12 years for fabric interventions and the like, because they're under pressure from HEFC to actually deliver a carbon saving which is in line with the Climate Change Act, the 2008 Climate Change Act. Your average private sector organisation wouldn't, because they just would have a better use for that money in other parts of the organisation. So I would say, on our experience on energy, 5 years feels about where it starts to get difficult, the conversation for most organisations. In terms of FM, so our experience is sort of 15 to 30% cost savings on the energy side for poorly performing, poorly looked at buildings. On FM, sort of typically 10 to 15% savings if you haven't systematically looked at what's being done and how it's delivered. Sometimes to get to that 10 to 15%, depending on the contractual mechanism that's in place, requires a heavyweight investment in procurement. But typically, an investment in FM will pay back probably within a year and a half to 2. So our experience is 1.5 years to 2 in FM, 10 to 15%, and 3 to 12 on energy, 15 to 30, with 5 years being where most people start to say no, I think. Does that? Yeah.
Great, thank you very much, John.
Okay, thank you.